Yeah, it is a bit of an unplanned one. I was kind of. It's a bit cold outside. It's cold in my flat. I've snuggled up with my fleecy hoodie, and I'm just kind of feeling a bit like I wanted to chat for a bit. I wanted to kind of watch some of the stuff that I used to watch. With the uh, theme park walkthrough videos. It's like comfort food. Sometimes I was kind of in the mood for it, feeling a bit down. So I thought, hey, let's hit record. Let's go through a video together. Let's see what ends up coming up. I don't even know what the name of the video will be. But yeah, let's see what happens. So I saw a little clip earlier from the Mark Twain Riverboat over in Disneyland. So it's an attraction for sure. It's not a ride. If in case you're not aware, it's basically just a big boat. It's a big old riverboat that you get on, and it just takes you around the park, and it's all very atmospheric with the music and the presentation and everything. And I thought, well, you know what? It goes around a lot of the park, and you get to see things from a distance, and they got a lot of theming and stuff going on. And I just thought, hey, that might be quite nice. Maybe we'll find something together. Maybe we'll find something to talk about along the way. So just before I jump in, this is the 4K Mark Twain Riverboat video. Thank you to LMG Vids for uploading this. Thank you to everybody who makes videos like these. You bring me comfort food, and it's great, and I appreciate it. And now your content allows me to kind of piggyback off of that. So yeah, it's a good thing you're doing. Thank you very much. But yeah, let's just jump in and see what happens. So I've never been here. This is Disneyland. This is the California one. So I've never seen the Mark Twain Riverboat in person. But this is like an old classic mainstay. A lot of the old Disney heads, people who regularly go to the parks, they love going on this. So you saw there, that was one of the cast members, as they're called, which is basically just employees, park attendants, people who have that face. I'm going to turn that down a little bit. The people who have that face as the presentation, kind of like presentation team, like they make sure everybody's happy and make sure everything's running smoothly, keep an eye on things, but it's important to them that they put a smile on everything. It's part of that, like American hospitality, American like retail customer service as well. Like it's a different culture over there. I mean, it's directly tied to a lot of the capitalist system that they have over there, the hyper-capitalist system. They have to do that for tips, and they get paid differently, and it's not good. I mean, that's something with the Disney parks as a socialist, as like an anti-capitalist in a lot of ways. It's something that I struggle with, and I know I've heard other similar park enthusiasts have a similar thing where your relationship with Disney is a weird one. Like my relationship with the theme parks, Disney theme parks, is just, it's a bit of a strained one, because in a lot of ways it's fakeness, it's facade, it's a giant corporation squeezing money out of people in exchange for simulated happiness. That's a lot of people who don't like parks, Disney parks. That fakeness, that level of artifice is something that they just never gel with, and it doesn't make sense to them. And especially if you're anti corporate culture, anti big monopolies and things like that, it's something that you have to kind of deal with in your own way. And something I always, like a big thing that I learned years ago, that is kind of like a motto that I use for myself sometimes, is like everybody draws their lines in the sand in different places. Like everybody, when it comes to veganism, consumption, corporate culture, environmentalism, like politics, every ethical decision that you make requires you to draw your line in the sand, right? And you kind of have to pick where it goes. And over time, you might change it. You might move it forward, backward, left, side. You're always making a judgment call. I'm vegetarian, I'm not vegan. So I made that decision to draw that line where I drew it. And I think it requires introspection to be able to review that constantly and think, could I be doing better? Should I be doing better? You know, what are the effects of the decision? Like, if I draw it here, why? What has happened as a result of that? And to bring it back to Disney, that's something I'm constantly wrestling with, is I really don't like a lot of Disney as a corporation. I don't like what they do. I don't like what they stand for. And on the other hand, I was going to say but. It's not a but, it's an and. Because multiple things can be true at the same time, which is something that I think a lot of... It's often lost, is things can be true at the same time. I don't hate Disney theme parks because, to me, what it stands for, or what I see in it, what I love about it, it's creative collaboration by master artisans, right? Like the production design, the engineering, the high concept design, the costuming, the performance, like the actual actors. There are so many talented people who make these things and work together to production managers, people who help artisans do their thing. They all work together in a creative field, and no one individual person made the decision to do it for money, right? Because then, people do it because it's what they want to do, and it's what they want to be good at, and it's what they want to get better at. They want to work with other people who also have those similar ideals, and that's something that I have lived with as part of the creative industries. I've found that love. It's why I love watching like movie behind the scenes, right? I buy Blu-rays just to watch the behind the scenes. To see how things are made, yes, is one thing, but also to see how people have worked together. My favorite one, absolutely hands down, is the Lord of the Rings extended DVD box set. Has so many hours of behind the scenes stuff, but one of the big things is that I love is there's like this really long uncut footage from production meetings. It's just a room full of people making decisions, and it's surprisingly candid. You don't usually get that in behind the scenes. Saw, the Saw movies is another one that has that in there. If you know of any behind the scenes, by the way, behind the scenes DVDs or Blu-rays, if you know any that have that level of candidness and realness, tell me, because I'd love that stuff. But to bring it back to the parks, I just see... Yes, I see that corporate level, and yes, I see those things that make me feel uncomfortable. I won't deny that they aren't there, or that one overrides the other, but the main thing that I take from all of this is I just love feeling the artistry completely surround you and take you to another world, and to make you feel certain emotions and to make you feel certain atmospheres. Like I love that. That's a huge thing for me. So the voiceover for that, like, that was scripted, recorded. The voice performer, the actor, they decided, how loud the volume should be, where the speakers should be. Like, is it gonna reach everybody in the park? Should you put the speakers on the boat, or should you put it out in the field so that it feels more like diegetic, like there's sound coming from the events that are happening around you? I don't know. I think that this level of decision making, like creative I'm gonna sound like I'm having an interview now, but like, for me, the thing I love about creativity and it's problem solving, it's decision making. Every little thing that you do, you're deciding what is the best thing for the product we're trying to make, or what's the best decisions we can make to amplify and improve this thing that we're trying to make. It's problem solving. It's a puzzle. It's a jigsaw. You can see all the deer models. That shows you how old this attraction is. None of these are animatronics. They're just static. But I think that's a big part of this attraction and why it's still around, is that it's like a legacy attraction, right? It's like people are attracted to the old feel of it and the old there's something meta in that as well, is that it's not about, or the ride itself isn't about, it's about a time gone past. Like thematically it's about the past, it's about this moment in history. So it's it's the internal kayfabe, the internal narrative of this attraction is taking you back in time to a certain point. But I think what it's become over time, the older the park gets and the more modern the park gets and the more futuristic the park gets, people are attracted to the attraction for the oldness of the attraction. And that's like a really strange meta, but you can see that obviously they've kept it around. It's a big thing. It's not necessarily something that they hugely advertise, but they might use the visuals in marketing every now and again, or they see value in it because the park attendants see value in it. And that's something that I maybe this is the theme of this episode, is about appreciating theme parks and also acknowledging the harsher realities of it. But that was so cute. I don't know if you heard that, like the little kid just going, "Look at the beaver." Yeah, what was I gonna say? I got beaver distracted. Don't clip that.
I got beaver distracted.
Oh yeah, so the decision to keep it, right? When it comes down to things, the decision to keep an attraction or to not change an attraction for whatever decision you're making, ultimately it's about profit, right? Like in a capitalist system, every single decision that is made is ultimately made with the end goal of increasing profit margins. It's making shareholders happier and increasing profit margins so that you can get more money. And if like the creative industries are no different, right? Like every single decision you make, yes, and smaller decisions that you make when you're working on a creative product can feel like you're making that decision to improve the product. Exactly what I was saying earlier. Like you're making decisions to solve a problem of how we can make this product. But ultimately, underneath all of that, there is the foundations of, we have a certain amount of resources that allow us to do a certain amount of things with a certain amount of materials with a certain amount of labor. And all of that feeds into, well, you're never going to make a decision, or the company the organization as a whole is never going to make a decision that doesn't help it make money. And with the theme parks, yeah, it's exactly the same. Like, they see a monetary value that is brought with keeping this boat ride, because it brings prestige, legacy, nostalgia. These things attract people to the park, or make them want to come back to the park, or make them want to spend money, around that particular part of the park. If you're under it, if we think that the boat ride is kept along purely just because it's fucking sick and it's rad as hell and folk love it, and that's the only reason why, no, that's not how capitalism works. That's not how the West works. That's not how Disney works. That's not how corporations work. That's just not how things work. But see, I use the word "but," and Walt Disney, when you go back and if you listen to interviews of people who worked with Walt Disney, who made decisions alongside him, he spent huge amounts of money doing things that everyone around him told him was a waste of money, that wasn't necessary, but he did it to improve the park. Romantically, and through rose-tinted glasses, and through marketing, and through communications from the company, that can be interpreted as he's just such a great guy who didn't care about money, he just wanted people to have a great experience, and blah 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 blah. That in Walt Disney's heart, making those decisions, that might have been the case, but ultimately, if we're looking at things a certain way, which I think it's hard not to personally, cynically, in this, like from a Marxist point of view, he's making those decisions because he thinks that money is gonna come back to him in the long run. Like, the better the park is, the more we make people feel like the park has been designed and built for them, and not for the shareholders, but for them and for their experience and for their kids and for the magic. If we can convince people that that's the case, then they're more likely to come, and they're more likely to come back, and they're more likely to spend money in there. And I think these things can all be true at the same time. I think an individual human being can make a decision without consciously considering profit. But I think subconsciously profit plays into it, but also as a conglomerate, as a collection of people, as a collection of people making decisions, you don't make decisions that aren't influenced by capitalism, because capitalism influences absolutely every single thing that we do. It's built into the way people think about identity, the way people dress, the way people buy, the way people talk to each other, the way people view other people, other groups, the way you view the world, the way you interpret information. We've gone into Marxist theory a little bit here, but that's my personal belief structure. And yes, I'm highly cynical about those things, and I think that those things are ultimately a net negative. I think it makes people aggressive and cynical, and blah, 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 blah. We've talked enough about that. Let's enjoy the irony that we live within. All right, let's acknowledge the hypocrisies and try our best to suck some joy out of the reality that we have built around ourselves. Because Lord knows, millennials and Gen Z, more than anybody, understands that agency is a fallacy, and agency is a Hamlet-esque fury towards God. It's something that people are lied to about, and I think Gen Z in particular, millennials as well, have just understood, you know what, if we don't try to find joy in this, while acknowledging it and while pushing it and while trying to progress it, then we'll just burn ourselves out, and it will be like Gen X was that culture of feeling the same feelings, but not necessarily having any real, not having the internet and not having any real way to band together and to communicate and to share ideas and to push narratives and to try to change things in the same way that we have. Things are improving, things are getting better, but yeah. I would never disagree with anybody who was anti theme park, anti attraction, anti zoo. I don't disagree with these things. What I do disagree with is people trying to disallow or gatekeep others from engaging with those things, or from engaging with their desires, or having an opinion on that thing, just because they drew the line in the sand deeper than you did. Like, if a vegan tells off a vegetarian for not doing more, I think on one hand that is completely valid and actually true and actually right, but on the other hand it's attacking someone who drew their line in the sand close to yours without looking at the lines that are drawn away in the distance, because they seem antagonistic or too difficult to reach. It's like climate change, right? It's like corporations have managed to convince the individual that the individual is the one at fault, and that the individual should recycle, that the individual should consume less, etc., etc., whilst the corporations are pumping out and logging and consuming at an infinitely higher rate. I still recycle. I hope that you also recycle. If you don't recycle for whatever reason, that's your reality. That's the things that you have decided to do. My hope is that everybody is equally willing to reflect on their own behavior and reflect on their own decisions, and constantly try and be honest with those decisions that they've made. But and there is a line, and I don't want this to sound like some centrist fucking diatribe about how, oh well, you know, the left and the right is equal and everybody. It's not the case. Like, you can have issues with where people draw the line. Like, if I say, like, oh well, if someone says I'm not racist and someone says they are anti-racist and someone says they're racist, both of those first two parties can look at the third party and go, hey, fuck you and fuck everything you stand for. You're a fucking cunt. That's not gatekeeping. That's just pushing against hate and intolerance. So don't get me wrong, and I'm not a fucking centrist, right? But I think when we're talking about parks and we're talking about theme parks, it's a decision that you make about how you feel about these things. For me, I mean, I think I've laid out in 23 minutes how I feel about that. And yes, this video is very preachy. I get it. You know, we haven't really talked design here, but maybe this is of interest to some people. But it's to bring it into some kind of a point. When you are in the creative industries, or you're making creative decisions in an industry that requires it, as a designer or as a producer of content, I think your part in the structure, the capitalist structure, the corporate structure, the organizational structure, if you are part of a small team, you know, if you're the leader of a small team, you know, if you've like made a startup company or something, I think every single decision that you make is difficult and important, but it's influenced. It's influenced from outside, and other people will view it differently. Other people will consume your content and their own internal experiences, their own life experience, where they drew their lines. Their sand sculpture looks completely different to your sand sculpture. And I think designing for different worldviews is incredibly difficult, almost impossible. So I think it's much like I talked about with my last video about authenticity and honesty and reaching out to people from other lived experiences and other cultures and other backgrounds. I think it's, as a designer, it's your job to advocate for the audience of the product that you're making, and I think that requires you to be very introspective, very curious. You have to pull from all different worlds. If you're a game designer, like I come from the games industry originally, and if you're a game designer and the only influences that you're taking are from video games, you are hamstringing yourself 1,000%. You part of your job, in my opinion, is to increase your knowledge base of all different types of experiences. Theater, art, books, storytelling, all that stuff. Architecture, whatever it is that you're interested in. But I would invite you to try and pull more from that than just the aesthetic, and try to pull from that where the people that consume that, the people who made that, the people who live around that, the people who that's part of their world and their space, what it is, what it means to them on a deeper level, and what it means to them as an individual, like how it's shaped them. Like all of these things are difficult. Yes, I think that's part of your job to get better at that, to get better at making things that are honest. And that's all we're trying to do, is be honest. I guess that's the point of this video. We're talking about how designing you get it. You know what I'm talking about. Well, fuck this video. Bye.